Man, oh man, it is the time of trailers, isn't it? We had Jurassic Park, then Force Unleashed, and now Terminator Genesys. It's just all about trailers at the moment. Now, if you haven't seen the trailer, I'll link it in the corner or click on the link in the description so you can go watch it. Otherwise, you're gonna have no idea what I'm talking about. So definitely go watch the trailer before you watch this video. So here are 4 really cool things about Terminator Genesys. Okay, so we all know that the T-1000 is cool and he can do some pretty cool things, but do you guys remember what Arnie said about him in Terminator 2?
It can't form complex machines. Guns and explosives have chemicals, moving parts. It doesn't work that way.
Now take a look at this clip from the trailer. Just really take a close look at it. Am I crazy, or is that T-1000 actually forming out of the bonnet of the car? I think he is. It certainly looks like it. So does that mean that the entire car is all part of the T-1000?
It doesn't work that way.
Well, maybe with this new T-1000, it does work like that. It can form complex machines. Now, maybe I'm wrong, maybe he's not. Maybe he's just sort of spread himself out across the bonnet of the car, sort of like how he did in the hallway in Terminator 2. But I don't think he is, because if he is, then who's driving the car? There's nobody at the wheel. So unless he's grown like a little miniature version of himself that's driving the car while he's out on the bonnet, then this car is the T-1000. But hang on a minute, is that possible that Terminators can transform like this? Well, earlier in the trailer we see John Connor and Kyle Reese running with a hunter-killer jet sort of bearing down on them, and then what happens? It flips over the top of them, transforms into a robot, and lands right there in front of them. That's a hunter-killer. It transformed into a robot. So it seems to be an upgrade of Terminators that they can transform into different machines. And I think the T-1000 can transform into complex machinery like this car, or I don't know, a vending machine, or this helicopter that Arnie throws himself in at the end. I think that's probably the T-1000. I don't know, it could be wrong, but how else do you explain this? Oh, and also he apparently can chop his own hand off and throw it as a javelin. That's pretty cool. Some people have made fun of the really terrible makeup of all the scars on John Connor's face, and yeah, it is pretty terrible, but do you remember back in Terminator 2, they showed us a glimpse of John Connor in the future, and he did have some pretty gnarly scars down his face. However, the Christian Bale John Connor didn't have scars down his face. So I think they're doing this to show us that this John Connor is the version that we saw in T2, not the Christian Bale one. Whether that means they're trying to erase Terminator Salvation from canon, or whether they're just trying to demonstrate that this happens afterwards, I don't know. But for me, anything that is closer to Terminator 2 than Terminator Salvation is good in my books, even if the makeup is not that convincing. I think this point in the trailer where the old Arnold comes up against the new Arnold, for me, that's the point where you're either on board with this or you're not. A lot of the rumors said that perhaps John Connor in the future sent this Arnie, the old Arnie, back in time to protect his mother when she was young, because he knows that Skynet tries to take her out, which is why the exterior of the T-800 has aged, because he's been around on Earth for, what, 40 years or something? And it's pretty clever of them to do this, because this means that Arnold Schwarzenegger's age literally means nothing. It doesn't matter how old he looks, because internally he's still the T-800 skeleton, so it's fine.
What you're doing right now, this is the end of the war.
When Grace Randolph did her breakdown of the trailer here, she mentioned that that's a pretty stupid line, because the very fact that he's there fighting the war, he should know that sending Kyle Reese back is not going to end the war. But if he's actually sending T-800s back to protect his mum, because he knows that Skynet's going to go after his mum, then obviously he's planning something different here. John Connor knows the events of the timeline, just like we know the events of the previous movies. So he's trying to stay one step ahead of the game here. He's protecting his mother before Skynet gets to her. And Skynet is trying to do a similar thing. Skynet in the future now knows that Kyle Reese is John Connor's father, and that's why they send a T-1000 to try and take him out as soon as he arrives in the past. So this scenario we're seeing is one where both John Connor and Skynet knows the events and are trying to one-up each other, stay one step ahead of each other. So whatever John Connor has planned, he's got something very different planned here. So that when Sarah Connor says this,
we can stop Judgment Day from happening.
I don't think she's talking about just stopping Skynet from being invented, because they already tried that and it didn't work. And notice she doesn't say, we're going to try and stop Skynet. She says, we're going to try and stop Judgment Day from ever happening. So I do have a theory about what that new plan is that John Connor's trying to enact here, but I'm going to save it for my story speculation video, which should be up tomorrow.